All right, gang, we're doing a deep dive on one of the most important perfumery notes today, a floral note, and we're talking about rose. Since it is really close to Valentine's Day is around the corner, it'll be here in almost a week, I thought I'd put together a deep dive on this most important perfumery note of rose. So I know you guys have been asking me to do this since I started doing these long form deep dive videos. And recently I just got one like a few days ago. Someone said, please do a deep dive on rose. And so I had it in the back of my mind to do it, and we're doing it today. So I've got 100 fragrances here. In fact, it might be more than 100. But when I did the Dominique Ropian deep dive video over the weekend, I think the chapters were off. And if you usually have a line of more than 100 items, including your intro as counting as one of the items, the chapter doesn't work. So if you ever notice that, leave a comment, say your chapters aren't working, but they really do work. If you go into the info box of the video, you can still click through the timestamps, just the chapters don't show up on the screen. But since then, the Dominique Ropian video has been fixed. The chapters will show up on screen, and of course, they'll always work in the info box. So if you're ever scrolling through my videos and the long form deep dive videos, you see that it's not working, let me know, add a comment, or you can click through the info box and it'll work that way as well. So I do have 100 plus fragrances here, all rose focused. There are fragrances missing, and I intentionally left them off because there's just no room for them. And of course, if there's something missing, let me know what it is. Why do you like it? Just don't say you forgot. Okay, I didn't forget. There's no room to add more. I don't forget to add things. If I have it, I will talk about it. And of course, I'm trying to make these long form videos 100 fragrances maximum, but I've thrown in a few extras here and there, and you'll see them as I go through. If this is the first time you're tuning into the channel, you haven't watched any of my deep dive videos, there is a playlist. You can click through and watch a ton of different videos, and some as short as a half hour and some as long as 3+ hours. Also, I'll tag as many of the products as I can. If you're in the market for any of the fragrances, you should be able to buy via the YouTube tagging system that has been set up. All right, let's get started with the list. But before I talk about the first fragrance, do let me know if you have a favorite rose fragrance. Add a comment below. I'd like to find out what it is. If I haven't got my nose on it, I'd like to search it out. I also feel like, before I start with the fragrances, I also feel like there's a trend in rose fragrances all of a sudden I am seeing. So let's see what happens this year. I think it was somehow started last year. And so we'll see what kind of rose fragrance offerings we will see come up. So let's get started. So the first fragrance I'm going to talk to you about is Aesop's ROZU, for a green take on rose. It's green, spicy, and stemmy, in case you're curious about this. I also have a video on the channel of a deep dive of the entire house of Aesop up to when I shot it. So everything should be there as long as I could get my hands on them. Some had been discontinued. But ROZU is, like I said, very green rose. It's not a jammy rose. It's dry, and it also smells like, if you've ever smelled roses, like the buds before they bloom, kind of smells more like that rather than the big, bad, juicy kind of jammy rose. And you get a lot of the green stem here. Very spicy, very green, a bit bitter. And it's a nice, very Aesop take on a rose fragrance, I think. It's not one of those big, like I said, really big rose fragrances. Super green and spicy. So that's what we're starting off with. Going to the house of Acro, it's Crush, a more gourmand take on rose. This is a more recent fragrance offering from this house. This is also an extract. Usually the brand launches eau de parfum, but this is an extrait de parfum. This is inspired by the rose macaroons that are very popular in France. They really are delicious. And I feel like they've really captured the smell quite naturalistically, like perfectly. So I eat them when I'm in Paris. Not a lot. There's a few other things that I enjoy, but these were quite popular for a while. What you get here is the rose, And you also get the creamy, doughy qualities. It's slightly sweet and, you know, gourmand with a rose. And to me, it's very realistic in the smell. It's powdery, like usually the macaroons themselves are, you know, a bit dusty, powdery. And you have that captured here as well. But biting into it, even though it's kind of doughy and crusty and soft in the inside, you really get the texture. It's quite delicious, I think. Really nicely capturing the smell perfectly. Up next, going to the house of OMEYYADE. Do want to say, as I'm getting to OMEYYADE here, there are some brands that have a lot of fragrances, and OMEYYADE has more than 4. I decided to cap off at 4. There's a few brands that will be 4. So this is OMEYYADE's Epic 56. I don't own a bottle of Epic. I have Epic 56. Basically, it's a spicy rose. Lots of spices. I wouldn't say it's as green as ROZU. Somewhat green, but this is more ambery spices, resinous spices, woods, lots of woods. To me, also, the rose is not jammy, juicy. It's quite dry. And I think the roses, like in ROZU, it was prominent, but the rose you experience is the buzz rather than a bloomed rose. Here, I feel like it's more of a bloomed rose, but still not super ripe and jammy. But a lot of other things are kind of covering it up, covering up the smell. I think Cecile did a great job. I think originally with the original Epic from Epic Woman from OMEYYADE was a few different perfumers. I think not the redo, but the update with the extract, it was just Cecile. So that's Epic 56 from OMEYYADE. We've got Guidance 46 next. I left off the original Guidance. I just feel like we're capping it off at 4 with OMEYYADE. I mean, it could have been 6, 7, maybe even 8. I much prefer the Guidance 46. I feel like the rose is a bit more prominent. You have that kind of creaminess, slight nuttiness, but there's a major ambery component here, resinous ambery. I mean, it's a trademark Quantum Biche creation. And even though I think the original Guidance is very, very popular for OMEYYADE, it might be the biggest seller for the brand. I think I prefer this because it does get more ambery. I mean, you still have that creaminess, nuttiness, the slight fruitiness, the rose is prominent, and it's very amber forward. I much prefer it here with the intensity and the depth this has in comparison to the original. And the original is not without any depth, but when you compare them side by side, it does get a bit noticeable how thin the previous is when you're comparing it to this. It's not thin by all means, but only when you're comparing them side by side. So that's OMEYYADE's Guidance 46. Here's a fragrance that became one of my very first true rose fragrance loves. It's a male targeted release. It's Lyric Man. I wore so much of this when I first got in on the scene of, you know, reviewing fragrances. I think the rose in this is jammy, but for some strange reason, I experience rose popsicles. There's a major lime depth about it, or component about it. The lime is pretty strong in this. You can totally notice it. I mean, I've actually created popsicles just putting in lime juice, very concentrated into ice cubes and making it into like a something you would enjoy. But here, it's almost like you've mixed the lime juice, the concentrated lime juice, with rose. like rose water. Rose water is really delicious if you guys haven't had any. It's not all kinds of roses. So if you're trying to make rose water, I would use caution. Some will not taste like it. And again, taste and smell go hand in hand. So you're smelling, I'm sorry, you're tasting, but you're also smelling at the same time. And this gives me an idea of taking the rose drinks that we used to make as a young kid and freezing it with like lime. But it's got a lot of depth, but it's also very, very fresh. There's some spices in there. There's some green notes in there. But I think it's really awesome. It's totally unisex though. And I've heard guys say it's very feminine. It's rose, so. And then last but not least from OMEYYADE, it's rose incense. Rose incense is basically exactly what the name says, rose and incense. I mean, incense gets boring if it's just incense, dark notes, spices like peppery spices and woods. The contrast of the rose with the incense is quite awesome here. It smells like church incense for sure. And a kind of very bloomed rose. But I don't experience the jamminess of the rose. I think the dryness of the incense resins and things like that have dried up the rose. But you know, you can experience some of the depth of the juicy, the oiliness of the rose, the rose oil they're using in this, or the rose oil. But it's really wonderful. You have, like I said, resins, smoky resins, peppery spices, and a gorgeous, jammy rose. Not so much juicy, but more jammy. That's rose incense from the OMEYYADE Opus series. It's got some sprays on it. All right, moving on to the house of Armani. We've got two fragrances from the house of Armani Privé collection. Rose ALEXANDRIE. Let me know if you guys have enjoyed any of the fragrances so far, or you have a bottle. Add a comment below. I've got two Armani fragrances that are rose focused. We've got the Rose ALEXANDRIE and Rose d'Arabie. We'll get to the Rose d'Arabie in a minute. To me, the Rose ALEXANDRIE is a fresher take on rose. Obviously, it's in a clear bottle, and that's kind of what distinguishes the different collections from Armani. The fresher fragrances go into the clear bottles. The fragrances with more depth go into the kind of darker bottles. And the fragrance wears very fresh to me. It comes off quite fresh. It's also a bit soapy, a little citrusy. It's a clean rose. And even though the rose in this might be kind of on the jammy side, it's not coming off a very deep. But it smells great. If you want something fresh to wear day in and day out, and you love the smell of rose, this is something you should look up. You might have to overspray. It's a freshie, but it smells wonderful, I think. I was not a big fan of rose up until I started getting into this hobby deeper. One of my very first rose fragrances was Lyric Man. There's also by Kilian's Rose-oud and Tom Ford's Noir de Noir. Those were like my very first real rose fragrance loves. And still to this day, I still appreciate them. I haven't gotten tired of them. But prior to doing this hobby, there were notes I didn't like, especially the ones that somehow I thought were feminine. I don't really think of notes as being feminine anymore, because they grow in nature. I mean, I don't think roses are feminine. I love the look of roses. They're beautiful. And I usually love very fragrant roses as well. Any chance I get to go to a rose garden, I'll jump at it, because I love smelling roses and also photographing them, because I think roses are beautiful. And they have some of the best smells, I think. So let's move on to the next Armani fragrance. This is Rose d'Arabie. And this is, to me, a fragrance that's similar to Montal's Black Oud, Gold Rose Oud by Terenzi, which I have here in this video. You'll see them. But this is Armani's take on it in their Privé collection, the Armani Privé. It's really nicely done. To me, what I like about this also, it's got a lot of patchouli, the earthiness in the base. It's an oud that's, you know, the Western oud. It's not animalic whatsoever, which makes it easier to wear. But you've got that oud accord depth in here against the rose. It comes off dry. It's also a bit saffrony, I think, also. You've got a little bit of depth with the saffron, which provides a light kind of leathery depth in the fragrance. So that's Rose d'Arabie from Armani Privé collection. If you guys are into saffron, I recently aired a saffron deep dive video. Go catch that video if you're curious to learn more about saffron. But that fragrance was not featured in the saffron video. Let's move on to the next fragrance, going to the house of Atelier des Ors. This is Rose OMEYYADE. So there is an extract version of this too, by the way, which I did not pull here. But if you like the idea of Rose OMEYYADE, and you want more depth, you can definitely check that fragrance out. I do have a video on the channel discussing the 3 extracts that are available from this house with the founder, Jean-Philippe Clermont. So for me, this is kind of a spicy rose. Not kind of, I think I should say definitely spicy, but it's not heavy on the oud. It's also, I mean, it's got definitely a Middle Eastern edge to it, but I think it's more focusing on the spices and the ambery resinous woods with the rose. It's a lush, ripe rose. You do experience it. There's also some sweetness in there, but it's super gorgeous, I think. It's not trying to be an oud fragrance, but there's definitely some light oudy touches. It does definitely come off Middle Eastern. It smells fantastic. I think these last 2 fragrances are created by the same perfumer. I believe Rose d'Arabie is created by Marie Salamagna, and of course all of the fragrances from Atelier des Ors are created by her as well. But they're totally different, acting totally different. Super lovely, the Rose OMEYYADE. I should take it back. It's a bit juicy, the rose, but more jammy than juice, like not runny, kind of a thicker texture. But it's quite ripe and luscious. So that's Rose OMEYYADE from the house of Atelier des Ors. Then we've got the house of Atelier Materi. It's Rose Ardoise. I have a deep dive on this house as well. If you're curious to go catch my video. Do I have one on Atelier des Ors? I can't remember. I think I'm going to have to do one on that house. I don't have one, no. But I do have a deep dive video on Atelier Materi. And Rose Ardoise is featured in that video. So if you are curious to learn more about this house, go catch that video. You can just search the channel for various brands you want to discover. The Rose Ardoise is a spicy rose once again, but also a bit resinous and incensey. Although it could be more like pepper that's acting a bit incensey, because pepper, black pepper, and incense kind of trick my nose sometimes, because you get the peppery spice from the incense or frankincense, and you get the smoky resinous spice from black pepper as well. So this comes off very peppery, spicy, and a bit smoky, which is smelling quite nice after smelling the Rose OMEYYADE. In fact, I feel like you can layer the two to kind of intensify the rose effect and amp up the spiciness in the Rose OMEYYADE with the Rose Ardoise. For me also, I'm getting slight saffrony leather touches here, but not very strong, kind of minuscule. This fragrance house makes great fragrances. I mean, this house makes great fragrances. I think they're a bit underrated. Check that one out. I think it's a really nice rose fragrance. Totally different than the Rose OMEYYADE, but back to back smelling them, they smell like they complement one another somehow. Up next, going to the house of BDK. We've got 2 fragrances from BDK. First of which is IMPADIA. This is a Jordi Fernandez creation. Came out last year. I think it was spring, right? From what I remember. It does remind me of the DNA of Guidance a little bit. It's funny though, I should say, I connected it to Guidance quite a bit, but lately it's not connecting to Guidance much. Somewhat behind the scenes, it does remind it, like further back in the fragrance, but it's kind of covered up. So it almost smells like it's a Canton Biche creation. The fragrance itself is a super spicy but very creamy take on rose. And I feel like if you're going to connect it to Guidance, for me, the rose stands out even further here. And I spoke about Guidance 46 here just a little while ago. This one doesn't have the depth of the resins like the Guidance 46 has, because obviously the Guidance 46 is an extract. This is an eau de parfum. This to me comes off a bit more fresh, a little fresh up top as well. So I feel like IMPADIA is perfect for warm weather wear. Yep, IMPADIA. Let me know your thoughts on IMPADIA. The color is just the right colors for this. They knew what colors the fragrance smells like. So it smells kind of, you know, kind of rose pink, orange glow kind of a thing. Up next is another fragrance from the house of BDK. This is TABAC Rose from Julien Rasquinet. This is one of the earlier creations from this house. Whoa. Not as early as some other fragrances, but I think it came out around 2019, 2020. I think I need to respray. I dropped it. So it's tobacco, rose, a bit chocolatey. Underneath it all, there's greasy smokiness. I think that's the tobacco. There's a bit of leather. It really smells like something that Julien would create. I mean, it's a bit fruity too, I think, a little bit. It's not quite a gourmand to me. It's not quite like an overdose of flowers. Everything seems to be balanced. Like you get this, you get the smell of the rose, you get the smell of the chocolate, you get the tobacco, it's amber, resins, maybe a little bit of leather, slight fruits, but everything seems to be perfectly balanced. And even though you have Julien's signature touch here, it doesn't smell like a lot of other fragrances, but it might remind you of some of his other creations just because it does contain some notes that he uses quite a bit. Like I was thinking of the moon. This doesn't smell like the moon at all to me, but you might connect it a little bit. And I don't have the moon here today, unfortunately, because it does have rose. I wanted to limit brands with only as most 4 fragrances. But I don't consider the moon to be a rose offering. This one I can pick up the rose more. I think in the moon, the fruits cover up the rose for me. Here, I definitely pick up the rose. It's there. It's a very spicy rose, though. So that's TABAC Rose from BDK. Let me know your thoughts. Yeah, I've got something floating in there. How in the world did it go in there? Never noticed that before. All right, next, go into the house of Boadicea the Victorious. This is Ardent. You guys familiar with Ardent? Ardent is a really nice take on something like Noir de Noir. what I get the difference between this and Noir de Noir is this one does come off like super jammy, juicy, almost mulled wine take on Noir de Noir. Mulled wine meaning it's been boiling. If you've ever had mulled wine, it's basically boiled wine with spices, hot. I gotta kind of get a little bit of the idea of that here with the Ardent, and I also get it a little bit with the same brand, the brand's fragrance Bodacious, but with a more cherry direction, whereas this is more of a rose mulled wine kind of a thing. It's super spicy, deep and rich and juicy and jammy, and the reminder of Noir de Noir is here for sure. And Noir de Noir, as I was saying, is one of my favorite fragrances. It was one of my very first rose fragrance loves. I just love that DNA. I think it's super sexy. And you kind of have that here, but as I was saying, a bit more of a mulled wine take on it. So that is Ardent from the house of Boadicea the Victorious. Let me know if you're familiar with it. It's also really potent and long-lasting. That's what I like about that one. We've got two fragrances from Bon Parfumeur coming up from the collection numbered 100 numbers. So this is 101, and this is Rose, Sweet Pea, and White Cedar. Who's got their nose on this one? This is simply fresh take on rose. Super fresh. The sweet pea is adding, I mean, it's a really beautiful flower. I love the smell of sweet peas, actually. And it's a nice contrast to the fresh, I mean, to me, sweet peas smell like fresh flowers, and rose can have depth, but it kind of freshens up and creates this beautiful bouquet of a nice balance of roses and the sweet pea smell. But there's a little depth when you get past that. The cedar, it's, you know, got a little woods in the base. Light spices coming in, and I think some citruses up top as well. Simple, more like a springtime rose offering. That's 101 Rose. I'm not going to read the French. Sweet pea and white cedar. This is written in French here. And then it's 106. This is Rose. It's Rose Damascena or Damascena Rose, Davana, and Vanilla. Now, if you guys don't know what Davana is, I have a whole video on the channel. A great note. In fact, I actually bought some essential oil of Davana and spoke to you guys about it. So it's a great way to discover what Davana smells like. Davana was featured in 54 as well, the fragrance I created with Juicebox. And it's very interesting to get that Davana essential oil, smell it, and you know, try and connect it with the fragrances that might feature it. It's a great way to learn how things smell in fragrances, by the way. But this is featuring the rose, the Damascena rose, and the Davana and the vanilla, and totally different. First of all, the vanilla seems to be very strong. I'm picking it up quite a bit. The Davana kind of smells like dried fruits and tea, and a little boozy and green as well, which is here. And the rose seems to be kind of a more jammy rose, not as fresh as the previous one. This one definitely is much more deeper, like deeper kind of fragrance in comparison to the 101 being fresher. I think not only does it have the vanilla to deepen the fragrance, to give it depth, but I think the Davana acts a little bit like that as well. So Davana, like I said, it's great way to learn if you buy an essential oil. Like, go catch my video on Davana fragrances, and you'll learn a little bit more about how Davana smells if you don't want to buy the essential oil. But I recommend buying some essential oils online and see if you can spot them in your favorite fragrance. It's a great way to learn. Okay, so we're done with Bon Parfumeur. We're going to the house of By Kilian. I've got 3 fragrances from the house. First, it's A Kiss from a Rose, A Kiss from a Rose, an Alberto Moria creation. This is a green take on rose. Ooh, I can smell the green stems. Ooh, I love that. It's green and spicy, and it smells like spring greens. A little bit of like pea vines. The stems of flowers. There's a slight succulent texture. It's very fresh to me. It's spicy, green. Quite lovely, actually. Doesn't smell like things that this brand might launch, because they're known for their boozy and gourmand, but I like what Alberto Morillas did. But this is one of the fragrances that I wore so much of early on. Rose-oud. So awesome. This is the new version of rose-oud. But I wore so much of rose-oud. I mean, By Kilian was one of the first brands I spoke a lot about. The very first fragrances I bought from the brand was Straight to Heaven, Rose-oud, Love Don't Be Shy. I was wearing those quite a bit. The Rose-oud in the red bottle, or the re-release or relaunch, is a bit different. For me, the jamminess is kind of gone. It's acting a bit thinner, because I still have some of the old one that I've put away in a corner, dark, dry, cool corner. And you can tell. I mean, I used to wear this because it's super, like, plump, like big. And I used to wear it, and as soon as your body heated up, I mean, the projection would start. I remember specifically, I was invited to an event one day. It was a luncheon. It's a travel event, and we'd, go around little tables and check things out, and then have food and walking around. I was getting so many compliments on Rose-oud from Kilian, because, it would project, and it would be this nice deep rose and oud combo. And I forgot who did this. Is it Khalees Becker, or is it Sidonie Lancessour, which were creating a lot of the Kilian fragrances early on? I mean, it still reminds me of the original, but it's definitely not as deep as it used to be. But it's a fragrance I wore quite a bit of, like 2014, somewhere around there. And then the third fragrance from the house by Kilian is Roses on Ice. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, you'll have totally different kinds of rose fragrances, fresh ones, deep ones, a lot of rose-oud, obviously, because it's a combo that a lot of people enjoy and create a lot of. But, we've got deep fragrances, fresh fragrances, so on. With the Roses on Ice, I would think this is one of Kilian's liqueur or like cocktail-inspired fragrances. To me, this is a Hendrix gin tonic idea. And Hendrix is distilled with rose and, I think, cucumbers. I think that's where the cucumber idea came along, adding a cucumber to a gin tonic, which is one of my favorite cocktails to have. And I get the idea when I smell this one. It's not a fragrance that I'm drawn to a lot to wear, because I enjoy some of their, boozy cocktail-inspired fragrances more. But I think the idea is very correct and spot on. But as an idea, it's not like... I prefer boozy fragrances that are like more like actual cocktails from like cognac or whiskey or rum. Because gin is not really boozy to me. Anyway, that is Roses on Ice from the house of Kilian, by Kilian. So next up, we've got a fragrance from a house that I don't speak much about. It's Chantecaille. This is Darby Rose. So Chantecaille is a brand that I discovered over 10 years ago, probably either at Saks or Neiman Marcus, because it's skincare. Maybe even Barney's, because Barney's had this brand as well. They have some really great fragrances, but nope, they don't. They're just kind of under the radar. Like, they have a great vetiver fragrance. They have a great amber, I think it's called Kalimantan. But this Darby Rose, I enjoy this Darby Rose. It reminds me of some of the rose fragrances I smelled on people in the 70s. maybe the early 80s. It also kind of reminds me a little bit of Rose Exaltant from Mise en Cire, which I'll get to. Reminds me, not identical, but it's kind of like this, kind of a dry, super spicy rose fragrance with, you know, spices and woods. It's kind of on the fresh side, but it's got a depth to it rather than being a fresh fragrance, if that makes sense. Let me know if you guys are familiar with this brand. Do you use their skincare? Darby Rose from the House of Chantecaille. It's got kind of like a disco ball effect happening in the cap. All right, going to a cheapie next. It's Chopard's Rose Malaki. Chopard Malaki fragrances are fairly inexpensive, so if you're in the market for something inexpensive, definitely check this one out. There's also a video on the Malaki fragrances if you're curious to learn more about them. I did a whole breakdown on the entire collection up until I mean, I don't know if they'll launch any more Malaki fragrances. They launched something not last year, the year before, and I think that was it, but they might launch more. So up to the point of the last release. But here with Rose Malaki, it's definitely taken the fragrance into a Middle Eastern direction. I'm not sure if they have oud in here. It's quite woody and also saffron, very much so in here. And saffron, I mentioned in the saffron video from last week, it's definitely something that rose is combined a lot with saffron and vice versa. It's almost like they work together well. But you know what? My favorite combo with rose, it's not oud, it's patchouli. The combo of patchouli and rose is so sexy, I think. But this one works. It's kind of Middle Eastern. It's a bit leathery. Of course, saffron is king with the rose. The rose is not super jammy. It's also a bit ambery when it's drying down. Simplistic more, but definitely worth checking out if you're into the idea of budget offerings. So that's Chopard's Rose Malaki. Let's see, where's my next fragrance? So I originally left this fragrance off, but I'm going to talk about it. And that's why my count's going to be more than 100. This is Dior's Ombre Nuit. Dior's Ombre Nuit is it's an amber with rose. Who's a fan of this? And do you like the new version of it in the Esprit de Parfum collection? Like this. So this is a warm, spicy amber take on, I think I should say, a warm, spicy, rosy take on amber. The rose is there. It's noticeable, but it doesn't get in the way, you know? It's about the amber. It's an ambergris-amber combo, so it's a bit resinous, but there's warm spices here. And as I said, the rose doesn't get in the way, but it is noticeable for you. You'll find it. But it also means you might be more sensitive to rose and it might stand out for you. And you'd be like, that's way too rosy for me. I would never wear that fragrance. For me, it's there, noticeable, but it doesn't get in the way. It doesn't super stand out. Definitely one of the more popular ones from the Dior Privé collection. And I do have a few Dior Privé well, yeah, I've got a few. So the next one is Gris Dior. This is the Chypre style, and this is the Rosen Patchouli combo. This one also has oak moss. And I'll talk about the original EDP, and I'll talk about the Gris Dior as well. And also let you guys know, this fragrance wasn't called Gris Dior before. It was called Gris Montagne. And I think around 2017, somewhere around there, the name changed from Gris Montagne to Gris Dior. It's a great DNA. I love this DNA. It's a bit classic. It's a lot of rose. It's a lot of patchouli and a lot of oak moss. I would call this a rose chypre. And then the Esprit de Parfum edition, I think what they've done with it, they've given it like a pulpy thickness. I know some people don't like that. To me, it smells almost identical, just it's a thicker, denser take on it. And some people like the kind of the more ethereal, flowy kind of take on it. I like the depth. Like when I say pulpy, like you can really experience the thickness of how dense the fragrance is, the Esprit de Parfum, which is what I get with both, most of the Dior Esprit de Parfum fragrances. So that's Gris Dior in the Esprit de Parfum collection. And then we've got La Colle Noire. This is, to me, a dewy, watery take on rose. Who's a fan? There's some spices here, but the fragrance comes off like rose has been rained on or watered. Morning. It's a bit spicy. It's very fresh. Some woods. It's dewy for sure, but for my nose, I feel like Francois Demachet threw in a little bit of something cologne-like. I can pick it up. So it turns my stomach a little bit, but it's not super strong, which is perfect. But when you really focus on the smell, it's there. It's certainly there. Like they were trying to, or he was trying to make the aquatic take on the fragrance. And to do that, he's thrown in a little bit of that cologne or something similar to cologne. So it does present itself a little bit. It reveals itself, I should say. But overall, the rose is quite gorgeous. And then, last but not least from Dior, it's Oud-Ispahan. And Oud-Ispahan is Dior's take on rose-oud combo. It's like this hobby is so interesting. So interesting. Like I started talking about this fragrance probably around 2015. At that time, people complained about how the reformulations were bad. But up until recently, I get comments that say, Oud-Ispahan lasts so long on me. Like, it's a very subjective experience. You either like it or don't. It depends on your chemistry. It either performs really great on you or it performs really bad on you. It also has to do with the sensitivity to smells. Like if you're super sensitive to fragrance, it might just last so long on you because you're picking it up after it disappears. But if you're not, you might think it disappears. I don't think it's a very long-lasting fragrance myself, but that's the reason why I kind of don't like to talk about performance as much, because as soon as I say it lasts a long time, somebody comes and says that fragrance doesn't last. As soon as I say it never lasts on me, it doesn't last at all, another person comes and says, that is the longest lasting fragrance on me. Like, okay, so yeah, it's everybody experiences fragrances differently. But for me, going back to Oud-Ispahan, it's got some funk. It's a bit animalic. And I think it was a nice partner to the more animalic leather oud when both of them were selling. And in fact, you could take leather oud, layer it with Oud-Ispahan, and it'll balance it out. Not be as animalic as leather oud, because leather oud was so super skanky animalic. And so you'd have a nice balance. But sadly, leather oud is discontinued. And you have the idea a little bit here. It smells a little bit like leather oud, not as animalic, and of course, with a lot of rose. It's really nicely done. If you like the idea of Oud-Ispahan, a bit more intense, maybe try Oud Palau from Diptyque. Not as rosy as Oud ISPAHAN, honestly. But I think definitely great offering from the house if you like the idea of a very Middle Eastern take on Oud and Rose with a little funk, as I said. So we're going to the house of Diptyque next. We've got two from the house. First of which is Eau Capitale. Launched in 2019, I think. Or was it 2020? It's a very spicy rose fragrance. A bit inspired by Portrait of a Lady. A bit. It's also considered a Chypre style, which Portrait of a Lady is as well. I don't think this has the depth, but for sure it gives me a Portrait of a Lady vibe. But it's super luscious. It's like full, beefy, kind of intense, very spicy, earthy rose. Gorgeous stuff. Really love that. I love that DNA to begin with, the Portrait of a Lady DNA. Then we've got, this is the back label of Eau Capitale. But let me show you the next fragrance. This is Eau Rose in the Eau de Parfum concentration. I'm not featuring the Eau Rose Eau de Toilette version. This version is super awesome, by the way. Really, really awesome. What I like about it is they've kind of brought out some greenness for the rose. They've thrown in the artichoke note in this. Ooh, lovely. It's the artichoke when it's raw, not cooked, obviously. That greenness gives it a bit of a stemminess. Kind of a vegetal edge. But it's a super intense take on the original Eau Rose from Diptyque. And I love that addition of that kind of vegetal greenness of the artichoke in here. Really nice. Diptyque does make great fragrances. The complaint I get, people think it doesn't, their fragrances don't last, which I think they're mostly known for their candles, but I think their fragrances are pretty good. I think they have some great fragrances. Let's move on to the house of d'Orsay, Maison d'Orsay. It's Rose Blaze, which we had the sample featured in our last mystery box. Let me know what you guys thought of Rose Blaze. To me, the extract from this house that I still consider to be the best is Tonka Hysteria. The last two extracts that were launched are pretty good. This is kind of a deep, kind of a thick take on Rose. I believe this is Jordi Fernandez. He also did IMPADIA. I could be wrong, though. I don't know who did this one. I've forgotten. I apologize. But basically, it's a really nice, thick, dense take on Rose. There's a creamy effect under there. It's kind of spicy. Maybe a little bit oudi Middle Eastern, but not quite. But super intense. So that is Rose Blaze by d'Orsay. Let me know which fragrances you're fans of so far that I've gotten to. Add a comment. And I should also mention, if you guys haven't subscribed to my Shorts channel yet, guys, please do subscribe to that. I'm waiting to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark so I can shoot some content and place it over there. Again, I haven't been posting shorts on this channel since the end of October because it was kind of screwing up with my channel's algorithm, which I was advised by my YouTube manager. But either way, I stopped doing it. The channel is kind of back on normal, and I will post shorts content there. In fact, I might even move some other types of videos off of this channel to a second channel, a third channel. So I haven't fully determined that yet, but soon we'll do. But the Shorts channel has started, just no content there yet. So please go there, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll soon start posting content there. So let's move on to the house of Electimus London next. It's Octavian. Once again, another super spicy rose fragrance. This one is also a bit sweaty spicy. Sweaty as in cumin. You can totally smell the cumin in this. Whoa. I haven't noticed how strong the cumin in this is up until now. The cumin is pretty strong. It's a very jammy, spicy rose. Maybe it might come off a little bit oudy, but I like the cumin in this. I know there's not a lot of fans of cumin. Very polarizing note. Let me know if you're a fan. Let me know if you hate the stuff. I think the association is always with body odor when it comes to cumin. This is a bit animalic. Like, when I smell this, I kind of smell a little bit of Papillon Perfumery's Salome, that kind of sweaty funk that fragrance has, but with an overdose of spicy rose. But I like that. That's good. That's really good. That is Octavian from Electimus London. We've also got Pomona Vitalis. You guys familiar with that one? This is so good. Pomona Vitalis is really great. It's warm, spicy, ambery rose. And this one, it acts like it doesn't come off super rosy. The rose is there, it's noticeable, but once again, it's not shouting. It's like really nicely blended with everything else. But it comes off ambery, very spicy, very woody, and kind of floral. It's warm, and it's got this warmth to it. But the rose, you know, obviously has more of a freshness about it. It's nicely blended together. It comes off, you know, ambery for sure. There's a lot of amber here, but I think all the notes blended together act a bit chocolatey. There's earthy. Maybe there's some patchouli in here as well, because I'm getting that. But the entire combination is super sexy, I think. Who's a fan? Pomona Vitalis. Really lovely offering from that house. All right, up next, going to the house of Etat Libre d'Orange. It's Spice Must Flow. Where does that come from? Dune. This is mostly a rose amber with smoky incense and spices. It's super, super ginger forward. I didn't realize this was so ginger forward, but the ginger is really, really shouting at me. I like the name a lot. I think it's super spicy, so I think the Spice Must Flow is kind of a cool name. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. It's incense smoky, it's ginger spicy, it's ambery, and of course rose. Spice Must Flow. Up next, going to the house of Essential Parfums, it's Rose Magnetic. Very, very fresh take on rose, by the way, if you like fresh rose fragrances. It's something you would wear day in and day out. It could be like a signature scent. Essential Parfums does make some great fragrances. It's also a fairly inexpensive house. And some of the fragrances are a bit light, like this one. It's an everyday, but I have family members that love this. They love wearing it day in and day out. It's an easy to wear rose. It's, you know, clean. It's spicy, a bit green, fresh, very, very fresh. So Rose Magnetic from Essential Parfums. Let me know if you're a fan. We don't have any of the Essential Parfums 2-for-1 boxes left with rose. We might have one or two, but definitely have the vanilla and the patchouli, which we have quite a bit of. If you guys haven't gotten your 2-for-1 Essential Parfums boxes, still have some in the store. But next, moving on to the house of Fragrance du Bois, it's Parisian. So, is rose a French thing? Because we've got Parisian here, and then we've got French leather here. Thoughts? This is also a very spicy take on rose. Super intense. Long-lasting. But I think the Electamus probably is longer lasting. Let's see what lasts longer here. The Rose Blaze lasts quite a bit. We're coming up to Frederic Malle as well. They're going to be pretty long-lasting offerings. But it's a really nice, super spicy take on rose. It's not jammy. It's very dry. There's woods, maybe like amber in the base. But there's maybe a little bit of oudi funk or some kind of a sweaty funk. But in comparison to the Electamus Octavian, they do have similarities, but they're different. I think the Parisian oud is, I'm almost picking up cardamom from it, like cardamom spice. Anyway, that is, not Octavian, Parisian. Parisian, it does say Parisian, but on the box it says Parisian oud. So I'm going to go with Parisian for now, but it's either or. All right, next we've got 4 fragrances from Frederic Malle. But as I said earlier, they might have around 9 or 10 with rose. So I decided to like cap it at 4. And first fragrance is Lipstick Rose. This is totally the idea of lipstick in a fragrance. Powdery, fruity, violet. Rose for sure. It smells like makeup. This is a Ralph Schweiger creation. I mean, it really does smell like the stuff that you think you're smelling, Lipstick Rose. It's flowy, it's airy, but there's a denseness behind it. The violet, the buttery, powdery touches of iris, the rose fruits. Really nicely done, I think. So that's Lipstick Rose from Frederic Malle. Then we've got Portrait of a Lady. Of course, we've got to feature that one here. This is a masterpiece. And yes, this was featured in the Dominique Ropion video over the weekend. If you haven't caught that one, please do. And as I said, the chapters are working now. But if you ever have that problem, as I was saying, just look into the info box. You can click on the chapters that way. But because YouTube's limitation is 100 total chapters. You cannot have any more for the chapters to work on screen. Otherwise, it still works in the info box. You can have as many as you want. It just 100 or more than 100. So it'll be like 101 won't work, and it'll just completely stop working. But going back to Portrait of a Lady, one of the best fragrances ever created. Rosy, fruity, incensey, earthy, patchouli, and amber. Really awesome scent. Dominique Ropion's masterpiece, I think. Who's a fan? Really, really great fragrance. One of the best ever created. And then also this one, Jean-Claude Helena's Rose and Queer. And even though I think this doesn't officially feature rose in it because the rosiness is created from geranium, you do smell it, but it's super green and vegetal. It's geranium, total geranium, but behind it all, there's that leather that it's supposed to have as well. Slight fruitiness in there, but not quite. Basically, as I was mentioning in the Dominique Ropion video, there were 2 fragrances that he created, or Frederic Malle has, with geranium focus. So, well, he didn't create this one. This is a Jean-Claude Helena. But Frederic Malle has 2 geranium fragrances that they've gone in 2 different directions, because from geranium you can get that mintiness, because it does have a slight mintiness, and then you can get the rosiness. So basically in this fragrance, Jean-Claude Helena has brought out the rose from the geranium, but when you smell it, you can pick up some slight mintiness as well. And with the geranium Paul Monsieur, they basically brought out the minty side of the geranium. But this is really great. I prefer this one over geranium Paul Monsieur, because geranium Paul Monsieur is reminding me of toothpaste mouthwash. But for me, this is super awesome from Jean-Claude Ellena. And then last but not least, we've got Rose Tonnerre, which used to be called Un Rose. But 3 years ago, they changed the name, which is strange. Why? I think there was some kind of a trademark issue or copyright issue. To me, it's almost like a combo of jammy and dry rose together. Because this one actually has the notes of wine. So there's a little bit of a wine effect happening, but it's more fresh. The rose does come off a little grassy. That's where the dryness is. And behind it all, it's a bit jammy. There's a jamminess for sure. But really nice. It's definitely one of the best from the house of Frederic Malle. Which I don't like the new name. Un Rose was much better. But I think what happened was... Is there something with the fact that China came up? There was a fragrance in China that was the same name. And so I think Frederic Malle wanted to change the name so there won't be problems. I don't know if that's the real story, but this is the stuff that I've heard. Let's move on to the house of Gallagher fragrances. This is Rosé All Day. The bottles don't look like this, by the way, anymore. So this is a rose apple crisp. So it's a bit brown sugary. It's a bit doughy, lots of rose, fruity. It's quite yum. In fact, in this bottle, it has gotten thick and dense. Like the way a real apple crisp smells or tastes. Who's a fan? Definitely one of my favorites from this house. It's super yummy. Really, really yummy. I like that addition of that rose with the apple crisp, and there's plums and brown sugar and tonka and things like that. And stainless steel, they say. All right, next going to the house of Givenchy, Accord Particulier. This is Nathalie Lorson creation. It's kind of, for me, I feel like this is Givenchy's layering or booster or enhancer fragrance. Because it's a bit simplistic. It's rose and patchouli, but it wears kind of like a skin scent. So I feel like you can use it on its own like that, or you can use it to, enhance your fragrances. Spritz this stuff on first, let it dry, and then spritz something else on. Like, I could totally wear this with something rosy, so it'll enhance the rosiness a bit more and, make it last a little bit longer. But for me, it's a very minimalistic experience. But behind it all, it's a spicy take on rose and patchouli, but more like a minimalistic take on it. It's interesting also, I was in France in October. They have this is a 100 ml bottle. They now have 200 ml bottles in this collection. And this collection never really caught on. This is like, how many collections has Givenchy created that is their like exclusive collection? Because they had another collection and that's gone. And then they launched this like during the pandemic, like 2020, 2021. And it's not really caught on. I think for me, this is really great. The MMW is great, and Noctambule is also really great, which I probably should have featured here. It's Rose and Oud, but I left it off. Let me know if you guys are fans of this collection. So that is Accord Particulier from the house of Givenchy. We're up to the house of Gucci. I've got 3 fragrances from Gucci. Gucci's Alchemist Garden collection, I should say. We're going to the first fragrance. It's A Song for the Rose. So I should also point out the look of these bottles have changed. The writing, I should say. So A Song for the Rose, look at it. It's different than how they write the names now. The Song for the Rose, it's kind of a minimalistic take on beautiful, almost classic take on rose. It's Alberto Moria's. It's fresh, it's spicy, a bit green, a little vintage. It does remind me a little bit of his Rose Exaltant, because he created Rose Exaltant as well. But I prefer Rose Exaltant a little more, because Rose Exaltant has some depth to it. I don't know. For some reason, I really like the collection from Gucci, the Alchemist Garden. They don't seem like they're super beefy. Who has that same issue with them? But the smell is really awesome. A Song for the Rose from the house of Gucci. Then we've got... Didn't write the full name. Oops. Rosa Incandescente. Rosa Incandescente is a marine take on, a marine minerally take on rose. Yeah, very, very much. Whoa. And it's interesting. I kind of like it. It's a bit seaweedy. Not so much cologne-y, but it's definitely marine. So I don't know how they created the marine effect in this. Thankfully, it's not cologne, which is like nauseating. But this is, once again, minerally, marine, spicy. It's either algae or seaweed, but a lot of rose, which kind of tones down the rosiness because we've got all these kind of like marine, mineral, kind of spicy notes. So that is Rosa Incandescente. And then we've got Rosa Sublime, or Sublime. And this one is more of a warm, spicy take on rose. Kind of ambery. Totally different than the other one. It's a bit leathery too, I think. I could smell the leather. Saffron, maybe. This goes into the more Middle Eastern direction. I don't know which one to like, and I'm kind of like I like A Song for the Rose. That's been out since 2019 when the brand debuted the Alchemist Garden collection. The two other rose fragrances launched like last year, and I can't decide. And I kind of like the minerally marine one more than this one, but I like this one too. Like I like the other one more. So that's Rosa Sublime, but it's rose, but with other depth. I think if you want just rose, A Song for the Rose probably will satisfy, because it's just mostly the rose, but the other two have other things happening with them. And then we've got two from the house of Guerlain in their, I don't know the name of this collection. I always forget. So it's the Middle Eastern collection. This is Musk Noble. This is not the Aqua Allegoria collection. It's interesting. I'm a bit anosmic to the smell. It acts very minimalistic on me. Sure, I do pick up the rose and I pick up a lot of musk, but it's mostly a skin scent. In fact, it needs skin for it to come alive a little bit, because this is just like almost hardly anything there. Who's a fan of Musk Noble? It's not super dirty, musky, but it's very minimalistic. Let me know your thoughts. And from the same collection, I don't have Rose Barbar, by the way, from the Art et L'Amitié collection, but from the same collection, it's Santal Noble, which is sandalwood with rose, but very Middle Eastern leaning, because this is a Middle Eastern collection. Kind of like the idea of the sandalwood and rose together. It's not too much done, but, oh, maybe it is, come to think of it. Yeah, this is very woody, very spicy, and of course rose. And I think it's also a little bit oudy. this probably Santal Noble is one of the more popular from this collection. If it was for a while. And I haven't really kept up with the collection. I recently got the AMBRE Summer, and that's pretty much one of the latest ones I bought. I haven't bought the Spice one. After they discontinued Bois Mysteria, I was like bummed. Why'd they do that? That was the best one. Oh well. But anyway, that is Santal Royal from the House of Guerlain. So we're done with the second page. We've got one more page here and then some, so I'll have to pause the video and then come back and do the rest of the fragrances. But we're going to the House of Headspace next. We've got 2 fragrances from Headspace. This is Rose from Headspace. This is the Dominique Ropillon creation. This was also featured in our video over the weekend. Not the biggest fan of it. I'm just highlighting it for you guys. If you like the idea of a very peppery green take on rose, created by Master Perfumer Dominique Ropillon. It's super peppery, super green, like the green stems of the rose. The rose is not super bloomed or ripe, so you're smelling the buds before they've bloomed and ripened. So you're getting a very green, spicy rose. Stemmy rose. So that's Rose from Headspace. Then we've got Santal from Headspace. Once again, another Julien Rasquinet creation. In fact, this is one of my favorites from this house. And I like the idea of that fizzy, fruity rose against the creamy sandalwood. And of course, it gives you that champagne idea, fizzy rosé idea. This is really good. I love this. It acts like champagne. And I kind of like rosé champagne myself. I like drinking it. And this acts like it. So that is Santal. Really awesome stuff. Created by Julien Rasquinet. Heading to the House of Hermes, it's oud-laced. I know that Hermes getting on the oud bandwagon is a bit late, but when I did my video on this, I remember mentioning how quality it was. It's very Middle Eastern style. The rose is really in your face. The oud is there, but it's more of an oud accord for me. It doesn't smell like that really raw, dirty, funky, you know, Middle Eastern animalic ouds. Because this is very wearable, but you've got the idea of that oud in there, and the rose is in here, and it's super spicy, woody, maybe a slight bit ambery when it's drying down. But definitely very quality take on Rose Oud from the House of Hermes. It's oud-laced. Then going to the House of Imaginary Authors. This is Slow Explosions. And this was actually in the saffron video because it's basically saffron and rose together. Plus, we've got apples here. If you like apples and rose and saffron, this is something you should check out. And the rose creates that kind, the saffron creates that kind of leathery effect here. But obviously saffron comes off a bit metallic as well. Here you've got that for sure. And I was mentioning in the video how to me, it acts a bit like a steel wool pad. There's some sharpness there, but it's more in that kind of texture. This is fun. It's definitely one of my favorites from the House of Imaginary Authors. I just dropped my paper, my list of fragrances. So that is Slow Explosions. Time to pause. All right, let's move on to the next fragrance. We're going to the House of Initio, It's Atomic Rose. Who's a fan of this one? Ooh, my bottle is not spraying. Okay, it's spraying a little bit. I guess I'm gonna have to get a new one. So I get that kind of Baccarat Rouge-like vibe in this, because I think it has a lot of like ambroxan or something in the base notes. But to me, it's a rose, but on the green side, and super musky in the dry down. Very fresh, smells great on skin. Wear it when it's warm outside. It projects and things like that. And again, you know, you've got the rose, it's on the green side, it's spicy. And of course, you've got that kind of a Baccarat Rouge-like effect with the ambroxan in the base, which smells super sexy. So that's Atomic Rose. Let me know your thoughts on Atomic Rose from the House of Initio. Up next, going to the House of Jo Malone. It's Rose and White Musk Absolute. For a while, this was, a lot of people were talking about this one. I think the fact that this has white musk makes the rose a bit soapy clean. So in the end, it's almost like you've washed the rose and you've got a clean rose. Not that rose is dirty, but it just acts a bit soapy. Not a bit, actually. I think it acts a lot soapy and clean. So if you like the idea of a clean rose, musky, white musky, this is definitely the one you should try. This is the Absolute fragrance. What concentration is this? So if they add Absolute in the name, does it mean it's becoming like an eau de toilette or eau de parfum? Because, you know, they've got the original clear bottles at Jo Malone, which are eau de colognes, and then they have the dark bottles, the black bottles, which are maybe more like eau de toilette. So are the Absolutes like eau de parfum? I'm not 100% sure. I wouldn't say this is the longest lasting fragrance, but it does have a bit more density in comparison to, you know, of course, the clear bottles from Jo Malone. But this is Rose and White Musk Absolute. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Up next, going to the House of Kajal, it's Jihan, which was also in the saffron video. This is a saffron rose combo. So if you've noticed, I have various different kinds of scent strips today because I'm all out. I've just ordered some. So, but this is Kajal's take on saffron rose. It's leathery. Very Middle Eastern style though. Super spicy. Dry. The rose is dry. It doesn't come off juicy and jammy here. Anyway, let me know if you're familiar with this fragrance, Jihan by Kajal. I have a full review on the channel if you guys are curious to learn more about it. Going to the House of COLLE next, it's Fleur Majesty Rose Royale 31. This is a fruity take on rose. Spicy and fruity, but fresh. Lots of fruits here. It's super juicy fruity. But there's spices here like pepper, maybe a little bit of violet as well. It's very fresh. It does come off a bit lipsticky for some reason, and I think it's the violet in here. Who's a fan of COLLE's Fleur Majesty Rose Royale 31? There's also some musk in there, and it's reminding me of the musk that's in the Jo Malone that I just spoke about. Okay, then we've got Lalique's Perle de la Ligue, I should say. This is a super spicy cheapie. Super spicy rose cheapie, I should say. Somewhat in the vein of something like Portrait of a Lady, created by Nathalie Lorson. It's a rose chypre. Not identical to Portrait of a Lady, but in that kind of ballpark, I should say. Anybody that's in the budget, I think totally can be satisfied with that. If you want to smell great, you know, this beautiful rose with spices, you know, patchouli, earthy notes, maybe some mossy notes. Really lovely. Perle de la Ligue. Nice looking bottle as well. What do you guys think? Frosted. I like kind of frosted look on bottles. All right. We've got a fragrance from the house of L'Occitane. This is Rose Saffron. You guys familiar with this? So last September, on my birthday, I was in the south of France, and I'd always wanted to go to the L'Occitane factory. And I visited, did the tour, and at the end of the tour, you've got a 10% discount of their stuff. And these are only available at their factory, I was told, but I have seen them in some of their boutiques, not a lot, but there's a whole collection of fragrances at the L'Occitane that are exclusive fragrances. This to me is a rose saffron combo, so it gets a little leathery. I didn't feature this one in the saffron video, but I wanted to feature it here. It gets a little leathery. It's not as luscious and juicy like some other rose and saffron. It doesn't have fruits and things like that, but it's a great combination to the rose, the saffron's kind of metallic spiciness and leatheriness against the kind of the luscious rose. But it creates a very dry effect, I should say. But it's super spicy. Rose saffron. Let me know if you're familiar with this. I don't know why it says rose saffron on the top and the bottom. But I highly recommend a visit to the L'Occitane factory. It's in a city in the south of France called Manosque, somewhere near there. And it's a nice 1 hour long factory tour. They highlight Immortelle because Immortelle is used a lot in their products. I don't know if it was used in their fragrances. And then the highlight also is the store. And in the store, you have all these big displays of their discontinued fragrance bottles, which was nice to see because I saw some of the fragrances I used to wear from L'Occitane when I first started wearing them in the early 2000s that they had discontinued. So next is Rose 31 from Le Labo. I should mention that was also one of my earlier rose fragrance loves, so it's definitely up there as one of the first. And this is a spicy take on rose, and once again very dry and cumin forward and woody grassy with vetiver. But it has the DNA of Le Labo. You can smell the Le Labo DNA here, man. It's that kind of musky woods that they have in the base of their fragrances. But this is a classic smell. The Fairmont Hotel Group has hotel products, amenities made with Rose 31. That's how popular that is. Le Labo's Rose 31. It's acting very light to me. Le Labo fragrances, that's the disappointing part about them. They never... Well, I mean, sure, it has some strength, but I smell a lot of fragrances here, and some of them really jump out. This one's not jumping out as much as I wanted it to. But it does smell really great. I love that DNA. So it's Rose 31 from Le Labo. Let me know if you're a fan of that. Up next, it's Le Parfum de Rosine Eloge du Vert. Do you guys know this brand? So Maison Margiela had that black collection that they had discontinued. They recently brought it back. It was a collection of fragrances that were eau de parfum in comparison to the original clear bottles that are eau de toilette. Within the black bottle collection, there was a fragrance called Wicked Love that I was really in love with. It was a green take on rose, bell peppers, and rose. That's gone. If you've been missing that fragrance, this is a fragrance you should try. This is Éloge du Vert from Parfums de Rosine. It's a green spicy take on rose. When you, I don't know if you guys, how you guys are after you watch videos on YouTube. Do you cook? Do you make salads? Smell bell peppers sometimes, like really focus on the way bell peppers smell. And I kid you not, you'll pick up some rosy nuances from bell peppers and vice versa. Some green bell peppery touches from, you know, roses that haven't completely bloomed yet. But that's basically what this is. It's very spicy, very green, rose and bell peppers together. Quite lovely. Éloge du Vert from the house of Parfums de Rosine. And then we've got two fragrances from the house of Liquid Imaginaire, but they're basically flanker of one another. Dame Rosa from Liquid Imaginaire. Sonia Constant created this. It's basically fizzy rose champagne. I just love that. It does remind me of Santal. It does remind me of Santal, sadly. And that's the Millésime edition. I think the fizziness, the fruitiness of the rose in both of these do come up in Santal, but Santal is a sandalwood focused fragrance, and the sandalwood in it is quite prominent. In the Dame Rosa Millésime, it's a bit more blackberry focused. It's deeper and much more kind of substantial as a smell. With the original, it's just almost like a nondescript fruity rose. But I really love this kind of sparkling effervescence between those two fragrances from Liquid Imaginaire. Anyway, Dame Rosa Millésime. Let me know if you're familiar with this series from Liquid Imaginaire. Smells great. If you're looking for a video on champagne or sparkling wine fragrances, there's a video on the channel. Those are featured in it for sure. Let's move on to the house of Lumari. This is Saja or Saya. I mean, this brand's known for porthole. That's probably their claim to fame. But I recently rediscovered this. It's quite good. It's a very spicy take on rose. Rose, oud, super potent and intense. I think it's a bit cumin spicy. Whoa. But I guess it might have like some faint reminders of fragrances like Portrait of a Lady, like Octavian, maybe Parisian, but not identical. But really lovely, really intense and dense. Kind of Middle Eastern rosy. Saja or Saya from the house of Lumari. Then it's Les Sables Roses from the house of Louis Vuitton. I think this is a nice, I think Ombre Nomade is the oud. This is lightly oudy, but more dewy rose. It's lots of rose. It's jammy. It's juicy, dewy, as I said. It's the, don't think you could see it, but Jacques Cavalier, who does all of the Louis Vuitton fragrances. So he did this l'Odyssée pour Homme. That's where the watery aquatic thing, he started that kind of aquatic, not marine, but aquatic. And I think he's kind of brought on that kind of aquatic touch to a lot of the fragrances at Louis Vuitton. And with this Les Sables roses, it's what I get is like dewy, watery kind of rose, but super intense and heavy, lightly oudy, smoky, and ambery for sure. And it's a great wear by itself, but I think it also is a really great partner for Ombre Nomade to give it a kind of an oudy, rosiness, because Ombre Nomade doesn't have the rose. Maybe it's got some faint rose. It's a bit more fruity. And I feel like if you layer the two together, you create something more like an oud rose combo. But on its own, it's quite great. Les Sables roses from the house of Louis Vuitton. And we've got a fragrance from the house of Maison Crivelli. It's Rose Saltifolia. Take on rose with salt, right? So I guess it balances out the jamminess and removes the sweetness. It's from the rose. Somewhat kind of algae marine, but I think it's a given. You got sea salt in there with the rose. So basically you've got this beautiful fragrant rose bush with blooming roses that are ripened under the sun. And you've got the sea breeze, salty air coming against the rose, and you get that experience here with this fragrance. It's fresh and salty and rosy. That's Rose Saltifolia. All right, we've got multiple fragrances from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian. We've got 4. First of which is à la rose, a fresh feminine fragrance. I'm highlighting this and the men's version for you guys. It's the Maison Francis Kurkdjian minimalistic kind of fragrances. And it's a kind of a fresh, slightly jammy take on rose for the ladies. It's not, I mean, it's feminine, but there's not a lot of denseness here. It's almost like the rose is so freshened up, creating a kind of a delicate rosiness. Does that make sense? Like, it's stripped away from the rosiness, kind of, is what I'm trying to say. It's just super, super fresh. And the men's version, I really love the rose in the back. It almost reminds me of the Depeche Mode Violator label. Anyway, the rose on that album. But unfortunately, this one, not super exciting. I'm just highlighting it here. This is, once again, a very green take on rose. Almost like, where the hell is the rose? Yeah. I mean, I kind of get that idea from Rose and Queer, but I much prefer Rose and Queer over this one. I'm assuming people go to this thinking it's going to be super rosy, and then it's just basically spicy, kind of green aromatic, green vegetal notes that might have like a light hint of rose. What do you guys think? There was another fragrance. God, I forgot the name of it now. Damn it. It was the rose and patchouli for the guys. What the hell was the name he had? It was the very first MFK fragrance I bought. I only have like 1/3 of a bottle left. What's it called? I'm forgetting. It was much better than this. It was much more rosy, but still it was very masculine. But either way, this is L'Homme à la Rose. But the next two are better, much better, from the same house, but they are oudi. This first one is Oud Satin Mood in this bottle. I think Francis Kurkdjian launched with oud, and then he had 4 other oud fragrances, or 3. I think it was 3. He had the Oud Silk Mood, which I have here, Oud Cashmere Mood, Oud Velvet Mood. Those got axed, and then he brought Oud Satin Mood, and Oud Satin Mood became the most popular. For me, I hadn't noticed this for the longest time. Because it has that violet note in here with the vanilla and the rose, does it give you guys a makeup vibe? It gives me a makeup vibe. I mean, of course it has the oud, but in this oud, I think it's an oud accord. I don't think it's any kind of naturalistic oud. But it's a very popular offering from the house, Oud Satin Mood. And I only have experience with the EDP, which this is. Is the extract better? And then we've got Oud Silk Mood, which is the extrait de parfum version. I think they only have an extrait of this one. And this is the first oud I bought from this house. Although I also bought a small 3-pack 10 ml version of the Oud Cashmere Mood that I ran out of. Was it a 2-pack? I can't remember now. It's been a long time. But the Oud Silk Mood is definitely one of those fragrances that's similar to Black Oud, Gold Rose Oud. It's a super cypriol forward oud with rose, maybe a little patchouli. But lovely, lovely fragrance. So I mean, early on, I was wearing a lot of these kind of oudy fragrances, oud and rose. I've kind of gotten bored of them. What do you guys think? Are you still into it? Is oud still very popular? Do people really love it? Add a comment and let me find out what you guys think about oud lately. Let's move on to the next page. We've got 2 more pages left. Last page is not full. It's almost full, though. All right, next we're going to the house of Mancera. It's Roses Vanille. Roses Vanille. It's rose and vanilla. It's soft and creamy. Gourmandesque. Yummy, delicious. The idea of combining rose and gourmand notes. First time I experienced it with Intense Cafe, then with the, this one here, Roses Vanille. And they remind me of one another. It's sister companies or sister brands, Mancera and Montal. There's spice here, but it's super velvety smooth. Roses Vanille. Let me know your thoughts on Roses Vanille. Up next, we've got a fragrance from the house of Memo Paris. It's French leather. So they've combined leather with rose. It's a beautiful leather. But what's going on with this brand? Don't hear much about them. They don't have distribution in the States. And once again, the rose in this is super dry. I think the leathery notes kind of dries it out. It's not a luscious, jammy, kind of juicy, jammy rose. It's quite dry. But it's a nice combo. The leather with the rose, the masculine and the feminine together, makes for a nice balance. Ooh, it's great. It's a bit green too, and super spicy. So they have a fragrance called African leather. It's the most popular leather from the house. But they also have a flanker of African leather called African Rose. If you guys have ever gotten your nose on it, it's so awesome. Basically, imagine taking the rose from French leather, adding it to African leather. I don't have a bottle of it. I need one, but it's quite expensive. It's so, so awesome. Just imagine African leather with a rosy touch. And the rose from that is like the rose in French leather. So awesome. Let me know if you guys have gotten your nose on African Rose. Add a comment below. Let's move on to Mind Games next. Mind Games Checkmate. Checkmate from Mind Games. Are you a fan? So Checkmate, I believe, has a fizzy champagne effect with kind of a rose and patchouli thing happening with it. Super spicy. Very earthy. It's reminding me of a Sheeper style. Kind of like a Portrait of a Lady. I mean, I think maybe the inspiration is Portrait of a Lady or something in that vein, but I don't think it smells identical to Portrait of a Lady, but it'll remind you of it a little bit. All right, that's Checkmate from the house of Mind Games. So up next, we're going to the house of Mise en Cire with Rose Exaltante. Oh man, this is good. But this rose reminds me of classic rose fragrances. I worked in a store when I lived in a different area when I was very young, late teens, early 20s. There was a lady that came to that store, always smelling like the rose in this. This to me reminds me of well, this fragrance wasn't around then, by the way. This is Mise en Cire's Rose Exaltante, created by Alberto Morillas, launched probably like 5-6 years ago. But this is kind of a dry rose, very spicy, slight green touches, a little bit of jamminess, sweetness thrown in. But absolute love for this. This also reminds me of when I lived in the Middle East, my dad used to travel to Bulgaria. Bulgaria is known for roses. And he'd bring back rose oil. And the rose in this reminds me of that rose oil. I was a little boy at that time. I was always obsessed with scent. So, and rose, you know, has a great fragrance. I'd open up those bottles, little wooden boxes or little wooden, like, vertical things that fits the bottles. So, very interesting shapes. And you'd open up and inside there would be glass and you could open it up and smell the rose in there. Super awesome smell. And that's what this reminds me of. It just totally takes me back. So that is Rose Exaltante from the house of Mise en Cire. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Up next, we've got 3 from the house of Montal. We have the first one being Black Oud. And I was mentioning Black Oud, similar to Rose Gold Oud. The Oud Silk Mood from MFK, and so on and so on. These fragrances were very popular 10-15 years ago when I was just starting YouTubing on fragrances. It's mostly an oud accord. Cypriol is pretty strong in this. The rose is very dry. There's some light jammy elements, but it's mostly dry. And you've got the earthiness of the patchouli in here, which adds that sexy layer. Spicy, woody, earthy, rosy, floral, oudy. It's really nice. Really lovely. Oud. It's Black Oud, I should say. I was going to say Oud Silk Mood, but it's Black Oud. And then we've got Intense Cafe, of course, my very first Montal. My very first Mancera is a fragrance called Black Intensitive Oud, which I don't have anymore. It was a blind buy. I wore it, but it wasn't a love, love, love. I think my second bottle of Mancera was Roses Vanille. But Intense Cafe, I mean, it's one of the best from Montal. I've turned it on to so many people. They love this. Creamy, velvety, smooth. Minute touches of coffee, if at all. It's a rose latte, basically. And rose lattes have been very popular lately. I got one somewhere in passing, and I was like, no way. It was so sweet. I mean, I love coffee, and I can't do very sweet coffees. I like it dark with, you know, some oat milk. I like cappuccinos, but this is more like a rose vanilla latte. That's Intense Cafe. And lately, I've been wearing quite a bit of Rose's Musk. So the Rose's Musk does remind me of the Rose in Intense Cafe because it's the same brand. But it's super musky, but the rose is super potent. I'm going to pause the video after this as well, guys. I'm going to trade out fragrances. We're into 1 hour and 45 minutes. And basically, I have more than a half left of this page and almost the entire amount of fragrances on the last page. Each page is 20. But Rose's Musk. Yeah, I actually took this to Europe in not February of last year, but in September, October. The June trip. I wore quite a bit of it. I really love it. It's basically not acting like the Intense Cafe, but it'll remind you of it because it's the same rose. But it's full of white musk. So it's quite musky. It's somewhat creamy, not super jammy, or about jammy, but not like juicy kind of rose. But if you like the Montal rose and you love the idea of white musk with it, you must try Rose's Musk. It's really, really great. Long lasting, super intense, great projection. It's the kind of fragrance I wear in the heat. It was quite hot in June and July in France, and I smelled like a rose bomb. So that is Rose's Musk. All right, table's cleared. The rest of the fragrances are brought and placed on the table. And we ended with Montal, and we're going to go ahead and start with Ormond Jane. I've got one fragrance from Ormond Jane. It's Arabesque. And Arabesque was featured in a Scent Club mystery box. Those of you that got that mystery box, let me know what your thoughts are on Arabesque. It's a rose-oud combo. It's dry and spicy. A bit saffron-y, very spicy. And the rose is pretty much there. Not like the strongest note. I think the spices and woods are kind of equally standing out with the rose. But saffron is kind of developing here, so it's getting a little leathery for sure. It's a Middle Eastern style oud-y kind of fragrance, not animalic whatsoever. This is an eau de parfum fragrance, so it's Arabesque. So up next, we've got Parfums d'Ucita. It's Rosarine. Rosarine is quite good, actually. Recently I did a deep dive video on Parfums d'Ucita. And I actually have a video that will air sometime in the next few weeks that I shot with Pisada of Parfums d'Ucita here in the studio. So stay tuned for that video as well. But what I like about this one, it's a rose offering with an earthiness of the patchouli, slight chocolatey, but the rose is dry and dusty. The fragrance is overall powdery, but it's a very sexy fragrance, I think. It's a nice fusion of the rose and earthiness of the woods patchouli. Yeah, that's really great. That's really great, actually. So then we're going to Papillon Perfumery. This is Tobacco Rose. My very first purchase from this house. Let me know if you guys are familiar with this one. I speak about Salome from that brand, but this was my very first. To me, it's kind of like a fizzy take on rose. It's also a little bit reminding me of Incense Rosé from Tower. You guys get the connection? Because it has this fizziness, like effervescence, kind of reminds me of Incense Rosé because that's kind of also very fizzy. It's tobacco, but I wouldn't say this is smoky. It's more leafy. But it's lovely. I used to wear this a lot. In fact, I also used to wear a lot of Incense Rosé from Tower Perfumes. I guess once I got into all of the rose fragrances I mentioned, like rose-oud and noir de noir, The few of the others that I mentioned, it went to things like tobacco rose, incense rose, and things like that. But it's been a while since I've pulled a tobacco rose. It smells quite lovely. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Now, this rose fragrance has been a favorite of mine for quite a while, but more towards the end of the 2010s and into recently. But now I've moved on from this fragrance and totally have embraced their the vanilla. But this is Paris Monte Carlo's Rose de Taif in the Extrait de Parfum concentration. This is a super jammy rose with a bit of lemony astringency up top. Very long lasting, super sexy, spicy, for sure spicy. Really love this one. I like its potency. I mean, you've got a lot of things happening with it, but it's mostly about the rose. The rose takes center stage. It's the star. They win the Oscar. But yeah, that one's great. Same thing with the Vanille de Tahiti. I think that's what it's called. Is that what it's called? Yep, that's what it's called. Sometimes when I have a lot of fragrance information in my head, I forget names. But yeah, I totally embraced their Vanille de Tahiti. It's the extract. And the same thing with the Vanille de Tahiti. I much prefer the extract over their eau de parfums because usually what the brand does is launch an eau de parfum and then they make an extract of it. The Rose de Taif extract next to the eau de parfum is much, much better. For me, it is. And then same thing with the Vanille de Tahiti. The extract is much better than the eau de parfum, but this stuff is awesome. If you're a rose lover, check Rose de Taif in the Extrait de Parfum concentration. So up next, I've got a fairly new house. It's a Korean house with 2 rose fragrances. First of which is called Mid Mountain. The brand is called Pesad. Let me know if you're familiar with this house. We actually featured one of their fragrances in a mystery box, not this one or the other one that I'm going to talk to you about. It was a nude fragrance in the last mystery box. This is kind of a woody take on fresh green aldehydic rose. It's very clean. I'm saying aldehydic. I'm not 100% sure the aldehydes are in there, but it acts a bit aldehydic. Slightly soapy, but super clean. It's almost like mountain air, kind of. Maybe it's a bit of musky, but really lovely, I think. Mid Mountain from Pesad. Let me know if you're familiar with that. And then we've got Veil Rose, also from Pesad. Let me know if you've experienced this brand outside of the mystery box feature last December. Now this one's a bit more substantial. It's spicy kind of rose. Lots of woods. Slight greenness, but this is, once again, not super green. And both of the fragrances a bit on the dry side. They're not super jammy. Well, they come off a bit more jammy, but not super juicy, I should say. But this is very peppery, spicy. Veil Rose. Who's familiar with the brand? Let me know. Add a comment below. Let's move on to Fleur with Rose Whip. There are 2 videos on the channel on the brand Fleur. Let me know if you haven't caught those. Go catch them if you want to learn more about the brand. Fleur's Rose Whip does act like whipped ingredients. Again, I've mentioned many times, I do bake. I used to bake a lot more. And the texture of this is like whipped. Like you've whipped like some kind of a heavy cream to create like a whipping cream. So there's a foaminess about it, but it's a much denser, almost doughy kind of consistency with a kind, well, almost also like bubblegum, but imagine the bubblegum's not chewed. It's a kind of like bazooka, kind of gummy. there's that texture, and the rose in here is acting a bit maybe like a fruit that's in the bubblegum, so it's giving that kind of a texture. But it's rose, it's spicy, it's powdery, doughy, creamy. Not my all-time favorite from the house, but if you are a fan of this kind of an idea of rose, definitely check out Rose Whip. That's from the House of Fleur. Then we're going to the House of Pierre Guillaume. It's Isparta. Who's a fan of this house? The brand, when I first discovered the brand, it was way early, like when I first started doing videos. I first discovered the brand around 2013 in the city of Aix-en-Provence in France. There was a tiny little perfume shop there. And I went twice because I wasn't buying a lot of fragrances, and I was very curious about the undiscovered brands. And the first fragrance I bought from Pierre Guillaume, which used to be called Perfumery Générale. So it was Cosé. It's the chocolate, patchouli, and cannabis. Or maybe it's cacao, patchouli, and cannabis combo. But the brand had multiple different brands, and then they all of a sudden created one brand, and it became the name of the perfumer behind the entire brand. This is a spicy kind of rose, kind of in that idea of Portrait of a Lady. Super spicy, intense, jammy rose. On the dry side, though, once again, so it's not super juicy, but it's a big, spicy rose. Fully bloomed and opened up. Not much green here, but a lot of spice. Isparta is the name, but there's always a number there, Isparta 26. Let me know if you're familiar with that brand. What are your favorite fragrances from the house? Then we've got my very first bottle of Rosa-Mundi from Profumum Roma. So Profumum Roma fragrances, I have a few videos on the channel shot in their flagship store in Rome. Their idea is, since the fragrances are not broken down in a top and a heart and a base note, you can rub these on because they're kind of oily. And I can't believe this still smells good. It's been like 10 years since I've had this fragrance. This is how much I have left. There's not a lot of like fresh top notes, and like I said, it's not broken down in top, heart, and base notes. It's mostly like patchouli and very jammy, juicy. This is like super juicy roses, and it's acting a bit like a chypre. It's kind of giving me the idea of Portrait of a Lady, but not similar smelling. This is not as dry as Portrait of a Lady. You can really experience the texture. It's kind of jammy and juicy, as I said. And of course, the brand's fragrances are all oily, so you can rub them because you're not going to burn the top notes off because it's all very linear, as I said. But this is really great smelling. Super awesome rose. One of my favorite early on rose fragrances. But I bought it in Paris, though. I bought it in Paris at the Printemps Boutique. Or was it Galerie Lafayette? I can't remember where. Somewhere. I think it was Printemps. But I still love this. It's a really great fragrance. And the brand has some really awesome scents, I think. Rosa-Mundi, let me know if you're familiar with it. I can't believe my bottle still smells great. And there's only a little bit left. All right, up next, going to the House of Reminiscence. This is Rose Temptation, Patchouli, and Roses. So the brand did a rebranding. Now, Reminiscence was a jewelry house with fragrances, just like Mauboussin. It's a jewelry house with fragrances, but they've separated. They're no longer connected to the jewelry house, and the brand has renamed their fragrances. So this was originally called Patchouli and Roses. Now they've renamed it to Rose Temptation. So once again, it's a rose with patchouli, and the combo is super sexy. This is definitely a really great combo of notes together, and it smells really wonderful. This is a spicy rose, earthy. I take it the idea might be similar inspiration to something like Portrait of a Lady, but the execution is different. The patchouli in this is a bit more chocolatey in comparison to the patchouli in Portrait of a Lady. And the brand's known for their patchouli fragrance, which is a chocolatey patchouli, a chocolate cakey. So I think it's the same kind of patchouli. But you definitely notice the rose in this. Rose Temptation from the House of Reminiscence. Again, once again, super sexy. I love the combination of rose and patchouli together. I think it's a match made in heaven. More than rose and oud, I think. But I think the more popular combo is the rose and oud. Okay, next up, we're going to the House of Sisley. We've got 3 fragrances. First of which is Isia. A very fresh, dewy rose. Slightly fruity. Who's a fan of Isia? I'm sorry, who's a fan of Sisley? Sisley. The brand's known for really great skincare, by the way, and they have some great fragrances. This is just a very spicy, fresh rose, slightly fruity, and wear it on the hottest days, I think, the warmest days. But you definitely notice the pepper, the freshness is here. The rose is a little dewy too, but super lovely. Then there's Isia La Nuit. So it's a darker take, it's a flanker, a darker take on the original, which is this. I bought this really, really clearanced, but I haven't hardly used it. But the price was too good to pass up. It's taking the original into a darker territory. There's some fruity accents in here as well. Almost like blueberry or some kind of a berry. It's gotten spicy. It's gotten much deeper. But it's balanced out and brightened up with the fruits. Whatever fruitiness is in here. So that is Isia La Nuit. Who's familiar with it? And I haven't pulled this out for a while. It's a bit dusty. The brand is known for Eau de Campagne, the very first fragrance of the house, created by Jean-Claude Elena. It's a tomato leaf freshie, like an eau de cologne style. Really wonderful offering. But let's move on to the third fragrance from the house that I'm going to talk about. Also about rose. It's Soir d'Orient. It's very sculptural. And this is another spicy rose fragrance. I think this is Fabrice Pellegrin. Super dark noir rose. Ambery, spicy, woody. A bit leathery too, I think. I'm getting a lot of leather tonight. So yeah, great house. If you haven't tried the fragrances of this house, do. My bottles are a bit dusty. I haven't pulled these fragrances for a while. But if you go to a department store, you'll definitely see, like if you're walking around the skincare, you'll definitely like Neiman's will have it, Bloomingdale's will have it, Nordstrom will have it, Saks will have it. So anyway, Soir d'Orient from Sisley. Up next, we're going to the House of Tower Perfumes. It's Rose. Wait, it should be Incense Rosé first. And as I said, it reminds me a little bit of Tobacco Rose. A little bit. This is, I always mention with this fragrance, it's like rose cola. It's super fizzy. Yeah, I love the way that smells. It's a fun fragrance from Tower. It has this DNA, the Tower oud. When it's drying down, you'll really pick up the Tower oud. It's the DNA of what the brand smells like. But it's a really fun, bright, kind of fizzy rose top. Really wonderful. In fact, I kind of like it a little more than Tobacco Rose. But Tobacco Rose was something I enjoyed quite a bit. That Incense Rosé is awesome. Love that. And then we're going to talk about Rose Absolu, the second fragrance and last fragrance from Tower Perfumes. Rose Absolu is a redo of Rose Flash from the brand. I don't know why, but I was almost going to say Rose Jam. Strange. But this is a very jammy rose. Really jammy. Super rosy, jammy. Have you guys had rose jam, by the way? It's kind of really tasty. This acts very spicy, slightly fruity, but overly juicy, jammy rose. It was a really great fragrance in the Rose Flash series, which came in the little bottles that were like $75 or $65, 30 ml. And basically that collection got discontinued, and then he's brought two of the fragrances from that collection into the regular bottles. And this is the Rose Absolu. It's now called Rose Absolu. And then there's the Vanilla Absolu as well. But if you like jammy rose fragrances, this is great. This also reminds me a little bit of Aramis's Calligraphy series rose fragrance. They kind of were similar to me. But really great scent. So that is Rose Absolu from Tower Perfumes. I have moved on to the last page. We should have about 18 more fragrances left. Next, we're going to the house of Tamine. It's Peregrina. Now, this is a rose fragrance that gets kind of deeper, more ambery, warm, spicy, sweet. Gourmandesque. For sure, gourmandesque. It's a bit caramelly for me. That's quite yum. I think it's definitely one of my favorites from the house of Tamine, but what's going on with Tamine? Tamine is like, I don't hear much about them anymore. But Peregrina is definitely delicious. I guess it's a rose gourmand, and this is really acting like a gourmand. Not reminding me of Montal's Intense Cafe, but, you know, the roses don't smell similar. But I think it's super delicious if you like a real gourmand experience with rose. Definitely try Peregrina. Now this next fragrance is a super surprise. I'm addicted to the way it smells. This is the Harmonist Floride Nebula. This is so super creamy smooth. Not a gourmand, but there's a very melted texture about it that I really, really love in this fragrance. I think I'm going to say creamy, but it's just a very flexible texture. Like you can pull it apart. It's a lot of rose, but wow, it's so good. Really, really wonderful. I'm finally going to talk about this because it's the way it's done. It's a bit fruity, for sure. I think there's apricots here. And maybe the texture of the apricots is creating this kind of like imagine if you're melting cheese and you can like stretch it apart with the smell. It's just very creamy and super delicious. But not in a gourmand way, as I said. It's just fruity, but a lot of rose here. And the apricots and the rose are so wonderful together. Like the rose brings out more apricots and the apricots brings out more rose. Yum. It's so yummy. The last two releases from the house are just really great. The oud one and then now Flora Nebula. My mom's name is Flora, by the way. Not the way it's spelled, but like flora and fauna. That's Flora and Nebula. Okay, and then we've got another fragrance from the house. This is Metal Flower. So it's a metallic take on rose, which can be interesting, right? Who's a fan of the Harmonist? What are your favorite fragrances? As I was mentioning in the Dominique Gropion video, I spoke about, God, what's the name of the brand? The brand that has the Star of the Season and Sea of Light, Orloff Paris. The way they redid all of their fragrances and they kept the names the same and they completely reformulated them to smell nothing like what they were originally. This brand did that too with their white bottles. And that's what I was told at Neiman's. And a lot of people were saying, why does the fragrance I have not sound like anything you're talking about? But going back to this, it's rose for sure, the metal flower, but it's definitely kind of metallic. I think it's aldehydes that's creating the metallic touch. And you can totally smell the aldehydes here. It's interesting what aldehydes does to fragrances. You can make them fizzy, effervescent, add a lightness to the fragrance, and it gives it a lift. And here, I think there is a lightness and a lift, but it's the metallic variety. It smells like, you know, rose and aldehydes. Rose-aldehyde. Is there an ingredient called rose-aldehyde? I really love Flori Nebula. This one's decent. It's not like a wow for me. Metal flower. But you've got to get your nose on Flori Nebula. It's so good. I think the color is also correct with the apricots in there. So they've captured it perfectly. All right, next we're going to the house of Tiziana Terenzi. We've got two from the house. I think this first one should be Ecstasy. Ecstasy is a really great take on rose. I think they've taken it to a masculine direction, especially it has a lot of wood spices, pine. The pine really stands out against the rose. Gives it a maybe slight bit of old school edge. Van Cleef & Arpels Pour Homme, the original, had pine and rose together. But it's not that old school, I think. But there's a bit of a classic edge about this one. Super spicy. Earthy. Very, very earthy. And of course the rose, which gives it a balance, I think. So that is Ecstasy. And then, of course, I can't forget Gold Rose-oud. That's the Rose-oud combo that's similar to MFK's Oud Silk Mood and Black Oud and a few other fragrances. Yep. It does remind me of the MFK. It does remind me of the Montal. It's a tried and true style. Super spicy. Cypriol papyrus forward. Dry rose. Jammy, but not juicy, but really robust and intense. Very long lasting. So that's Gold Rose-oud. All right, we're going to the house of Tom Ford. We've got 4 fragrances, starting off with the redo of Café Rose. So Café Rose was part of the Private Blend collection. I still have a bottle in the Private Blend, and they've relaunched it in the Signature line. When did Café Rose come out? So if you're going to compare this to something like Intense Cafe from Montal, they're nothing alike. This is, to me, dry and spicy. It's more coffee grounds rather than a latte experience. So there's no milky, velvety, smooth effect happening here. But it's a dry coffee with rose, dry rose, woods and spices. I always liked this, but when it came to comparing it in appreciating Tom Ford, I much appreciated something like Noir de Noir, because it was just so good. I like this one, though. I just don't love it. So Café Rose. The original was also maybe a slight bit better. Then, of course, Noir de Noir, the masterpiece. Is it true it's a Jacques Cavalier creation? Oh, it's so good. It's mossy. It's earthy patchouli, both earthy notes. It's got the truffles, the ones that grow underground like the mushrooms. Lots of rose. It's a dark. kind of a rose. Kind of a vampire-y rose. But so good. Once again, I used to get compliments with this one. I used to wear it a lot, but I don't wear it as much now. But it's definitely one of the original Tom Ford Private Blend Collection fragrances. One of the original 4, which included oud wood, tobacco vanille, Tuscan leather, and of course, Noir de Noir. Awesome stuff. Then we've got Rose d'Amalfi. Is this still selling? I can't remember. Rose d'Amalfi, slightly gourmand leaning. I think it's the heliotrope that adds a kind of a sweet, powdery touch. So yeah, heliotrope is pretty prominent. There's woods and amber in the base, but we've got a lot of rose in this with the heliotrope. It's my favorite of the trio of rose fragrances that Tom Ford came out with, Rose de Chine and Rose de Russie. Rose de Russie got discontinued and it was relaunched as Rose Exposed, which I don't care for. This has gotten quite spicy as of late. Not smelling as good as I remember. Maybe I've gotten bored of this. But that's Rose de Amalfi. And then last but not least, from the X-rated collection, it's Rose Prick. It's a super spicy rose chypre style fragrance. This one has turmeric as a note from what I remember. It has patchouli and lots of different varieties of rose. My bottle is really low. I'm not smelling much. Very spicy. Definitely has the styling of a rose chypre. It's really great smell. If you like spicy roses, you gotta check that one out. I like that one more than the Rose d'Amalfi. I don't know why the Rose d'Amalfi is not smelling great to me today. Because it's my favorite of those 3. Weird. But the rose, for me, with the 4 Tom Fords, I would go Noir de Noir, Rose Prick, Cafe Rose, and Rose d'Amalfi today. I mean, I much preferred the Rose d'Amalfi before. Something's gone wrong. That's very strange. Let me know. Maybe I've just gotten bored of this smell. Anyway. So that's it with the Tom Fords. Then we've got 3 fragrances from Nuit Nomade. First of which is Click Song. Once again, really great patchouli and rose combo. So good. Super sexy too. Ambery, resinous, dark, earthy, like the patchouli is super in your face. And that rose, gorgeous with all the notes together. It's spicy too. There's the pepperiness. Lots of amber here. Ah, it's developed to smelling so good. Click Song by the House of Nuit Nomade. Then we've got Jardin de Misfa. Gotta make sure this is featured here as well. It's such a great offering from the house. My favorite. It's rose, saffron, dates. Not necessarily gourmand. Also not as dense and ambery like traditionally dates can be. But there's a tartness about it. It's kind of fresh, but with some substance. It shines in the heat. This version, not the extract. And I'm not talking about the extract today. Just the original, which is definitely a favorite of mine. Absolutely love it. Jardin de Misfa. Let me know if you're a fan as well. And then the last fragrance from the house, we're going to talk about Rose America. This one I'm not so familiar with. Let's See if I can figure it out. I think this is an Anique Monardo creation. It's a spicy rose, but I'm getting something very carnation clove spicy. Bit vintage, old school. Why am I getting carnation? Carnation or cloves, they smell very similar to me. So it makes the fragrance very spicy. I don't know if you guys have ever had the clove gums, giving me that kind of a smell with the rose. All right. Not my favorite, but the previous two are awesome. That's Rose America. All right, up next, we've got 3 fragrances from the house of Van Cleef & Arpels from their collection Extraordinaire fragrances. We're going to talk about Moonlight Patchouli first. Once again, it's a patchouli rose kind of dark noir combo. It's a Chypre. Once again, created by Sonia Constant. It's really awesome. You know, I bought a bottle of the Parfum. I cannot for the life of me find where I put it. I probably put it in a box, but man, I need to pull it out because this is one of my favorites from the house, and a Parfum version of this is going to be really super awesome. But it's a dark take on rose and patchouli. It's earthy, mossy. So that's Moonlight Patchouli. We do have Moonlight Rose as well. Not an like it's not like a flanker. It's just a new creation because that one has rose as well. But I think the rose is a bit more pronounced here. But I much prefer Moonlight Patchouli over Moonlight Rose because there's also Moonlight Cherry. Let's smell the Moonlight Rose. I think the Moonlight Rose is created by Fabrice Pellegrin. Yeah, this is a little bit more ambery, a bit leathery. Saffron leather. It's good, it's not bad. But if I was to pick one of including the third one, I'd still pick the first one. But let's go to the third one as well. I think it's my least favorite of the 3 that I'm going to talk to you about, and it's created by Julien Rasquinet. I like the second one quite a bit. But still, my favorite is Moonlight Patchouli. Then it's Moonlight Rose. And let's see, Rose Rouge. Julien Rasquinet creation. He's done 2 for the collection. My favorite that he did is Orchid Leather. Awesome scent. But that one doesn't have any rose. Rose Rouge, on the other hand, since it is in the clear bottle, it's going to be fresher. It's a kind of a fruity rose fragrance. Juicy, very fresh, sparkling, a little spicy. Yeah, it's fine. I think somebody that wants lighter fragrances will enjoy this one. But yeah, so between the 3, we're doing it in the order that I just told them to you. So we've got Moonlight Patchouli, then we've got Moonlight Rose, then we've got Rose Rouge. I like the name Rose Rouge, though. Yeah. Anyway. So then we've got 3 fragrances from Xerjoff. Starting with Cambridge Club. Cambridge Club is kind of like the idea of Montal's Intense Cafe, but in a Xerjoff way. So the Join the Club collect, I think that's what this is, right? Join the Club, JTC, yes. Join the Club collection, they never publicize the notes. But this is kind of what's happening here. I don't find this as milky as the Intense Cafe, but it's in that kind of vein. This is more amber to me. It's spicy, it's rose, it's amber, it's woods. The roses do remind you of one another, but not quite the Montal rose here. This is more like the Xerjoff rose they're using. So that's join the club, Cambridge Club. This next one came out last year. This is Louis XV 1722 Rosé. Yes, this is rose. This is another champagne fragrance. And I don't like it as much as the men. It's not a men's version. It's the previous edition that also featured the champagne, which was more fougere. This one, it's giving me fruity vibes. I mean, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that because the Santal from Headspace and the fragrance from Liquid Imaginaire, both of those are kind of fruity, but for some reason I'm not clicking with this one as much as I click with those, and of course the previous edition of this. But some of you might like it. It's rose and fruits and a fizzy effervescence. But the original, the one that came not last year, but the year before this, the one that's fougere-like, I love that fragrance. It's so awesome. But this, it's not my favorite. What do you guys think? So I think this is the second champagne collaboration that Xerjoff did. And then the last fragrance from Xerjoff, we've got Tomi Iommi Deified. This is the last fragrance. Once again, it's kind of complex like the previous edition, but they smell different. This is more rosy saffron leather, but behind it there's woods and amber, of course. I love the bottle. I love the... I'm not a big fan of skulls, but I kind of like the skull treatment they gave this. I think I kind of prefer the original more than this. The original Tony Iommi. This is interesting. I think the leathery saffron thing is pretty pronounced. That's what's, I think, working for me quite a bit. Anyway, that is Tony Iommi Deified. Is it Defied or Deified? Then 2 left and we'll be done with the video. We've got 2 from the house of YSL, another designer like Van Cleef & Arpels. We have Lavalier first, Rose and Figs. Very fresh, a bit green but fruity. I love this fragrance. This is also an Annick Menardo creation. Whereas I didn't really care for the Rose America that much. I really love this one. It's figs and the roses together. It's a match made in heaven. Ah, it's so good. The figs, you can get the green leafiness, the juicy fruitiness. This is quite juicy. Like, this is a really juicy take on a rose and fruity fig. So good. So good. These and the last 2 fragrances are really great. This also, the last one from the YSL, it's Rouge Velour. This is also a rose and patchouli combo. Super sexy. Really, really awesome. You know, I've forgotten talking about this one because it was always about Baby Cat, but these 2 are really good. I don't know who did this last one, Rouge Velour. But it's dark and sexy. Very, very sexy, I think. There's a little bit of a nail polishy thing I'm picking up, but with an overdose of rose and patchouli. Yeah, I like that one a lot. Rouge Velour. And that's the last one. We're done. We did more than 100 fragrances today. I don't think we ended up with 3 hours. I think we're around 2.5 hours, which is great. 3 hours will be Saturday's video. But this is just in time for Valentine's Day. If you're looking for a rose fragrance to gift someone or to gift yourself, you can, check out all the fragrances I spoke about here today. Let me know what fragrances which fragrances you have or own. Which do you enjoy wearing? And what did you miss seeing here today? As I said earlier, I only put here as much as I can, which is 100, but we ended up with more than 100. But obviously these videos I have to limit to 100 at least. I mean, especially if we want the chapters. So some of these fragrances I have to like double chapter them, if that makes sense, so you guys can click around. Because if I don't leave the chapters, you guys complain. So I want to make sure you have chapters. Also, as I was saying earlier, all of the fragrances that are available online will be tagged. And as I'm talking about the fragrances, they'll be timestamped. So you can, timestamp, check out the fragrances, and of course, chapter checkout. And if the product is available online for purchase, you can also buy the product as well. But again, let me know what your favorite rose fragrances are that I spoke about here. Let me know which fragrances I missed. I'd like to find out. Maybe we can do a part 2, but I don't think I have much more than I have here. There's probably more, but I think this is the core of what I own rose fragrance-wise. But let me know what's missing. Add a comment below. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Click the bell icon so you'll be notified for future videos. I've got more deep dive videos planned for the rest of the year. And please also subscribe to that the shorts channel that I started. I will be very soon starting to post shorts there. Just stay tuned for a little bit longer. I've got a big announcement coming up. I hope to do that very soon. It's been getting delayed and delayed and delayed. I'm working on a project which is going to keep me very busy once it's announced. And I might actually have to take a pause from the channel, which I don't want to do. But again, subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for some announcement. Subscribe to the other channel. Please like the video. It'll really help with the algorithm. It'll make sure the video goes out to more people. And if somebody's looking for a rose fragrance, this will pop up. But thanks so much for watching today. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please stay tuned for more videos to come very soon. And I'll see you guys with another video tomorrow. Bye-bye.